In 1944, the Me-262 could outrun every Allied fighter in the sky. It could also kill its own pilot. Its jet engines flamed out without warning. That paradox has driven 6 generations of fighter jets, each one built to fix the last generation's fatal flaw. By 1991, fourth-generation jets had posted a 36-0 record in air combat. And somehow, that still wasn't enough. On August 27, 1939, the Heinkel He-178 lifted off powered only by a turbojet, reaching 598 kilometers per hour, almost double the speed of most piston fighters. It could barely stay airborne for 6 minutes, carried no weapons, and left pilots surrounded by the sharp scent of burning fuel. The He-178 was a glimpse into a new era, speed without substance, a machine that proved jets could break the old rules, but not yet win wars. By 1944, the Messerschmitt Me-262 brought jet power to combat. With a top speed of 870 kilometers per hour, it outpaced every Allied fighter. Pilots described it as a rocket with wings. But the Jumo 004 engines were fragile. 30% of Me-262 losses came from engine failure, not enemy guns. The Gloucester Meteor, entering Royal Air Force service the same year, could not match the Me-262's speed, but intercepted V-1 flying bombs at 650 kilometers per hour, thanks to more reliable engines. Still, early jets shared a flaw. Nearly 40% of failures came from flameouts or compressor stalls. While piston engines could last 1,300 hours, the Jumo 004 barely managed 30. The Korean War brought the MiG-15 and F-86 Sabre, both topping 1,000 kilometers per hour. United States claims of a 10-to-1 kill ratio faded under scrutiny. The real figure was closer to 2.5 to 1. Speed alone no longer decided battles. Engine reliability and pilot skill mattered just as much. By the mid-1950s, afterburners and radar-guided missiles arrived, but each advance exposed new weaknesses. The sprint for speed had run into the limits of engines and control, setting the stage for a new kind of air war. By the early 1960s, radar had become the decisive edge in air combat, but only for targets above the horizon. Traditional radars were blind to aircraft flying low, lost in the ground clutter. The breakthrough came with pulse Doppler radar, first fielded on fighters like the F-4 Phantom II. Suddenly, pilots could detect, track, and engage enemies, skimming just above the treetops, even at supersonic speeds. The F-4's AN/APQ-120 radar, paired with AIM-7 Sparrow missiles, gave it a look-down, shoot-down capability that changed the rules of engagement. But Vietnam exposed the limits of theory. Missile reliability was poor, and close-in dogfights still happened. In 1972, during the Thanh Hoa Bridge strike, U.S. Phantoms used new laser-guided bombs and wild weasel tactics to suppress North Vietnamese defenses. But pilots still called the radar our third crewman, sometimes the only one who knew where the MiGs were. Variable geometry wings arrived next, aiming to solve the paradox of speed versus agility. The General Dynamics F-111 and Soviet MiG-23 could sweep their wings back for Mach 2.5 dashes, then extend them for tight turns or short takeoffs. The F-111 proved its worth as a deep strike bomber, while the MiG-23 became a staple of Warsaw-packed air forces. Meanwhile, the MiG-25 Foxbat pushed the envelope further, reaching Mach 3.2 in interceptor trials, fast enough to chase down the US SR-71, but at the cost of maneuverability and engine life. By the end of the third generation, fighters could fly farther, faster, and lower than ever before, guided by sensors that pierced the fog of war. Yet every leap in speed or detection brought its own vulnerabilities. The next wave of designs would have to answer a new question: could a jet outturn a missile, not just outrun it? By the late 1970s, the rules of air combat changed again. Not with more speed, but with the ability to outmaneuver anything in the sky. Engineers realized that if a jet could be made just unstable enough, computers could keep it flying, while pilots pushed the limits of what was physically possible. Enter fly-by-wire, digital flight controls that replaced heavy, sluggish hydraulics with software, making hundreds of corrections every second. The F-16 Fighting Falcon became the first production fighter to throw out the old playbook. Its center of gravity sat behind the wings, so unstable that a human could not fly it unaided. But with fly-by-wire, the jet responded to the lightest touch, rolling 360 degrees in less than a second, pulling 9 Gs without losing control. John Boyd's energy maneuverability theory drove the design. It was not about raw speed anymore, but about keeping energy in a dogfight, turning harder, climbing faster, and never bleeding off momentum. Thrust-to-weight ratios crept above 1:1, meaning fighters could accelerate straight up. In the Gulf War, this philosophy paid off. Coalition F-15s and F-16s scored 36 air-to-air kills without a single loss. Iraqi pilots never saw them coming, and when they did, they could not escape. The F-16's fly-by-wire system made up to 40 flight corrections per second, letting pilots dodge missiles and snap through turns that would have torn apart earlier jets. This was the apex of non-stealth fighters: pure agility, digital control, and raw power, all fused into machines that turned instability into dominance. Fourth-generation jets reached their physical limits, but their lifespans stretched on, not through new airframes, but through electronics. The arrival of active electronically scanned array radar, known as AESA, changed everything. Instead of a single spinning dish, thousands of tiny modules steered radar beams instantly, tracking dozens of targets, jamming enemy sensors, and mapping the ground all at once. Pilots could see threats before being seen themselves. In 2011, a French Rafale used its AESA radar and advanced missiles to down a Libyan MiG-23, confirming a kill in airspace thick with surface-to-air missiles and electronic interference. The Eurofighter Typhoon and Russian Su-35 took the concept further. The Su-35's thrust-vectoring nozzles let it pivot in mid-air, while its infrared search and track system could silently pick out enemy heat signatures, no radar emissions, no warning. As one combat pilot put it, "You're not just flying the jet, you're flying the sensors." These upgrades let older designs hold their own, but the skies were getting deadlier. Heat-seeking missiles and networked defenses meant visibility alone was no longer enough. The next leap would not just be about seeing first, but about not being seen at all. Stealth is no longer a feature, it is the foundation. With the arrival of the F-22 Raptor in December 2005, every line, angle, and coating on a fighter became a calculation to defeat radar. Engineers had a single goal: shrink radar cross-section so low that even advanced tracking systems would lose the jet against background noise. The Raptor's skin and internal weapons bays erase the telltale spikes that once gave away a fighter's position. But stealth alone is not enough. The F-22 can supercruise at Mach 1.5, which is sustained supersonic flight without afterburner, closing on threats faster, quieter, and with less infrared signature than anything before. In large-scale exercises, the Raptor has posted simulated kill ratios as high as 9:1 against top fourth-generation jets. The F-35 Lightning II pushes this further, fusing radar, infrared, and electronic signals into a single picture for the pilot. The price of this leap was a staggering $1.7 trillion over its lifetime, making it the most expensive weapons program in history. China's J-20 joined frontline service in 2017. Russia's Su-57 followed in 2020. Each was built around the same low observable philosophy, but with their own trade-offs in agility, sensors, and range. The fifth generation has reached a ceiling. Near invisible to radar, able to cruise supersonic, and aware of every threat in the battle space. Yet every advantage reveals a new vulnerability. Stealth coatings degrade, sensor fusion strains under electronic attack, and costs soar. The search for the next breakthrough has already begun. By the early 2030s, the next gear shift is already mapped out on drawing boards and in secret wind tunnels. The U.S. Next Generation Air Dominance Program, NGAD, targets an operational debut before 2035, with Europe's GCAP and FCAS racing for similar timelines. These are not just jets, they are flying networks, built to fight in swarms. Each is expected to fly with AI-controlled wingmen, unmanned drones able to scout, jam, or sacrifice themselves in a split second, all coordinated by machine logic faster than any human pilot. The ambition is adaptive engines that can reconfigure for maximum thrust or fuel efficiency on demand, pushing sustained speeds that may break Mach 3. Directed energy weapons, once science fiction, are now on the test range. Laser turrets designed to blind missiles or melt incoming drones at the speed of light. Every surface is tuned for multispectral stealth, not just radar evasion, but infrared and electronic camouflage. Program officers talk of digital twins, virtual copies of each jet, running a live simulation to predict failures before they happen. The goal is an aircraft that can outthink, outpace, and outlast any threat, in a battle space where the first to see is not just the first to shoot, but the first to survive. This is the sixth generation: autonomy, energy weapons, and algorithmic warfare, all converging in the skies of the 2030s. Now, sixth-generation projects race to field artificial intelligence pilots, drone swarms, and hypersonic missiles because today's stealth is tomorrow's target. Each new edge rewrites the rules, forcing a new survival equation. The arms race never ends. The future of air combat is not just faster, it is smarter, stranger, and already accelerating.